Reacher Season 3's Episode 6 features a compelling action sequence that proves the upcoming Neagley spinoff will significantly differ from the main show. Given how Lee Child has never written any spin-offs for the original Jack Reacher books, Prime Video's Neagley spin-off is taking a massive risk by expanding the franchise with original storylines. Since Reacher Season 1, Neagley has been the only consistent figure in the titular character's life. Although Reacher rarely stays in touch with people from his past, he always keeps Neagley in the loop and even seeks her help when necessary. The Amazon Prime Video detective series Season 3 portrays something similar by showing that even though Reacher is involved in a covert operation, he does not hesitate to ask Neagley to run a background check on the villains. He ensures Neagley does not directly get involved in his mission, but values her expertise from afar. However, despite Reacher's best efforts to keep Neagley out of trouble, the bad guys catch up with her in Season 3's Episode 6. This is when Reacher Season 3 gives a glimpse of how Neagley's separate show will not be the same as the parent series. In most of its action scenes, Amazon's Reacher seems to portray old-school, campy fight sequences, where the main character usually relies on his fists. Like a typical classic action hero, Jack Reacher also often throws a one-liner or two before beating the living daylights out of his enemies. Instead of adopting a similar action choreography, the Neagley sequence in Reacher Season 3's Episode 6 takes a more modern approach by not featuring an over-the-top hand-to-hand combat between Neagley and the bad guys. As soon as Neagley realizes that some intruders have entered her office, she, unlike Jack Reacher, takes a more strategic approach to handling the situation by carefully separating the villains. Once that is out of the way, she lures them into her traps and uses her gun to shoot them dead. Unlike Reacher's fight scenes, which are spectacularly slam-bang and brutally physical, the Neagley sequence focuses more on precision, showing how she uses her environment to her advantage. It would also be fair to say that Neagley's action scene is also somewhat reminiscent of the choreography in the John Wick movies, owing to his size and strength advantage over most of his enemies. Jack Reacher usually does not think twice before dancing with danger. Without second thoughts, he plays with fire and improvises along the way instead of tactically approaching his enemies. Reacher Season 3's Episode 6 establishes that Neagley does not do the same. Instead of jumping straight into the fire, she carefully analyzes a situation from a distance and only then reacts. During combats, Reacher relies on his nearly superhuman strength, but agility is not exactly his forte. Neagley, in contrast, seems way more deft and sharp around the edges as she hides underneath tables and cleverly sets up one trap after another to outsmart the bad guys. While Jack Reacher, too, often throws in a punchline or two while beating his enemies, Neagley seems to have her own brand of humor. This is evident in Reacher Season 3's Episode 6 when she says, "You're an ambulance," to a villain who asks her to call him an ambulance. After Reacher Season 2, it was hard not to believe Neagley was more or less like a female version of Jack Reacher. This was concerning because it suggested that the Neagley spin-off would be another recreation of the same series with a female lead. Thankfully, Reacher Season 3 establishes that, despite sharing a few traits with Jack Reacher, Neagley is unique in her own ways. Her emotional reaction to Russo's death in Season 2 and desire to stay in touch with Reacher also established her as a far more grounded and relatively less stoic character. Even with the action sequences in Reacher Season 3, the franchise seems to highlight that Neagley's individual stories will focus more on realism instead of being explosive and over the top like Reacher's. This is a good sign for the upcoming spinoff because it shows that it will avoid riffing on Reacher's formula and try to etch its own identity. Although the Neagley show is still exploring a risky domain by expanding Lee Child's universe with an original storyline, Reacher Season 3 gives hope that it could be as good as its parent series, if not better.